Alongside the great Carmen Tegano, I'm Brent Hubbs of Volquest.com. Another edition of Inside or Beyond the Tee, I should say. And Carmen, I'm in Neyland Stadium right now in the house that the General built. And one of the guys who helped build this house joins us today, Carmen. One of your dear friends, one of my dear friends, and one of the voices of college sports and college athletics, the great Charles Davis, joining us on Beyond the Tee today. Charles, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, Brent. Dr. Tegano, so great to see you. So great to see you both. And God, there you are at Neyland Stadium. And you're right, it's the house the General built, and then the rest of us got to inhabit it for a short time. So that's pretty cool, to be able to do that. So I'm loving that part. And Brent, I don't know if you know this, but when Dr. Tegano made the decision and decided to become a Vol, he saved a lot of things. People may not understand just how important the addition of Dr. Tegano was, because we can talk recruiting, we can talk key players getting healthy for a season, we can talk all of that, but when you get the guy who's in charge of academics, it gets things right, and everyone can get on the field, we can get on the grass and play. There's no Sugar Bowl, there's no SEC championship without Dr. Tegano joining and becoming a Vol, and I'd say that with zero tongue in cheek. I mean, without him, it does not happen. So we are very, very fortunate.
I appreciate that, Charles. There was a time there, though, from the first time I met Charles Davis, I loved him. He's from the North, and he's just Charles Davis. But Brent, it all wasn't that perfect between us. There was a professor on campus who was on the athletic board. Her name was Cynthia Fleming, and she was Georgetown PhD, and she was on the athletic board, Brent. And one day she looked over at him and she said, "Dr. Tegano, you keep talking about these great student athletes, but I've never seen one." So I went to Charles. I said, "Charles, you're in grad school. There's this great graduate class you could take. She's wonderful. She's a great person." Brent, I'd see him in the hallways, and he wouldn't talk to me. He'd walk past me. He wouldn't say a word to me. Finally, I said, "What's up, Charles?" He looked at me and said, "I'm a guinea pig. She's the hardest professor on campus."
I said, Brent, I'm just going to tell you straight up, everything he's saying it has its roots in truth, okay? Because he's exactly right about that. But what he didn't say was, he didn't come to me about taking the class. He told me I was in the class. I was already okay? I was in it. I was taking it. Here's the time schedule. Here's the location. The whole deal. Now, here's the post. Dr. Fleming was an incredibly tough professor. She was wonderful. She was everything that you're looking for.
Higher education.
Listen, when I'm 50, and I'm 57 now. So when I look back from 57 back at my 20-year-old self and say, okay, what do I really want out of a professor? Well, my 20-year-old self is saying easy tests, no attendance, right? Any of that stuff. My 57-year-old self is saying, I want Dr. Cynthia Fleming.
Yeah.
She made you get it done. And if you didn't get it done, it didn't go down. I'm going to give you two quick ones on it. All right. And this just tells you who she is. Number one, because I realized very quickly, and Dr. Tegano had told me, hey, you better be on your P's and Q's now. I didn't miss class. I showed up. I did the best I could. I was sitting in Gibbs Hall, the immortal Gibbs Hall one day. And of course, I was doing what all of us students do. I was sitting there watching game shows. I think Pressure Luck was on.
No whammies, baby.
Big bucks, no whammies, right? And I look over, and someone who actually was in the class, another athlete, because I paved the way, had come through the door and said, "Hey, where have you been?" And I was like, "Right here." "Why?" And he's like, "What have you been doing?" I said, "Watching this game show, and it's really good." And he's like, "You dummy, you missed the final." I said, "No, I did not. The final's tomorrow." He said, "No, the final, we just finished the final." Somehow I had screwed up the date on the final. Okay, Dr. Fleming's class. I got to her office in less time than it took Anthony Miller back in the day, Willie Gall. I mean, I beat their time and did not pull a hamstring, okay? Whoever the fastest Vol, Valus Jones, I mean, you name it, I destroyed them getting to her office. And I Dr. What? And she's like, "Where have you, what was that?" I said, and I told her, I said, I can't make an excuse, Dr. Fleming. I would just tell you straight up, I thought the final was tomorrow. I said, if you want me to take the exam right now, I'll take it. blah, 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 blah. And she said, and here's the lesson for everyone. If you do everything kind of the right way along the way, if you meet your professors halfway, if you're in class as you're supposed to be, if you give effort and try and get the work done, this is where it helps you. Because she just looked at me and went, tomorrow, such and such a time, be ready for the exam. And she gave me a different exam than she gave everyone else. But let's say I didn't go to class. Let's say my attendance was spotty. Let's say I was, carrying a D in the class or an F. You really think she's going to give me a makeup? You really think she's going to work with me on that? Yeah. That tells you about who she was as a professor, understanding, hey, sometimes people screw up. She saved me on that one. All right. Yeah. Second part of that, guess who was part of my, what do you call it, Dr. Tegano, when you take your orals for your master's degree, your counsel, your
your oral finals.
Your oral finals, and you have to have the professors, and they're the group that, it's almost like the ancient Romans, thumbs down.
You're in the Colosseum.
She was part of that group. She agreed to be part of that group. Her and it was just Dr. William Bruce Wheeler, who was my advisor.
Yeah.
It was amazing, the people that I had during that time. But there's your academic story for the day.
Right,
there's your Dr. Fleming. But Brent, don't ever fall for the Charles. We would really like you to. I was already enrolled. It was done. Okay? Fix was in. Okay?
The Carmen Tegano fix was in because you needed to be the example.
Yeah. But I'm just telling you, heard me. What a great fix.
Yeah.
She ended up being a very influential person in my life.
Well, and I want to transition out of that, Charles, because it's a great story. But you deserve the credit because you were in class. You were where you were supposed to be. You were doing what you were supposed to. You were creating the relationship with that. And that's something that you learned as a student athlete at Tennessee with the help of people like Carmen Tegano, but also with the help of your head coach, John T. Majors. Because if you don't have those kinds of influences and you're not held to those standards in your football building, those standards don't carry over to the academic world, right, Charles?
You're exactly right about that.
Or real life.
Yeah, it does. And it goes back even further because I had my mom and dad. All right. My dad was a high school teacher and coach. He coached college basketball, Division III, junior college level as well. He had a master's degree from school. My mom only had a high school degree, but she was from a family of 11 in Elizabethton, Tennessee. So going to college wasn't exactly in the cards then. Okay, if you think about her time frame, segregation, all the things going on then, I think there was, out of her 11, one went to college and graduated. Okay, so this just wasn't part of the whole package. But for her, that was more important now that I do well academically. I was going to be someone who goes and gets it done. So I get to school, and obviously the people you talk about now, there's the influence. Now, Dr. Tegano I didn't get to meet him until later in my career, all right? Alan Beals was there, and he was a very good influence on me academically. David Vols was there, and then Dr. Tegano came in. So I was fortunate with all of them. They had an interest in me being a good student and doing the right things. Coach Majors had a big interest in that. When he came into your living room and told your parents you're going to get a degree and you're going to do things right academically, he wasn't just blowing smoke. Okay. Sometimes you get that with a coach who comes in, tells you all the right thing, and kind of goes down the road. But also he had his own interests as well. And it was funny because I got enrolled in the Shakespeare course. Okay. I was a sophomore and it's a senior level course. And I actually had to, remember Dr. Getty had to sign in. You had to be accepted by the professor. Okay?
Yeah.
I think that you helped grease the skids on that one too, where I think you told the professor he'll be okay, even though he's a kid. So I go rolling into this class. I'm sitting up front. I never wore Vols gear, always, and this is where I got lucky because even though I was athletic, I wasn't a lineman. The poor lineman. Okay. Yeah. When they walked into the room, didn't matter if they're wearing sweats or whether they're wearing a three-piece suit, you knew that was a ball player. I could kind of coast through there a little bit. Like I could just be a student, and I made sure I didn't wear anything. I didn't want my teacher to have anything preconceived. So I'm doing well academically in this class, right? I'm doing so well that the professor grabs me at the end of the semester, near the end of the semester, and says, Charles, every year I take a group of students over to Stratford-on-Avon, and we study the Bard, and we do this and we do that. Would you like to go on this trip? And he gave me the dates. As soon as I heard the dates, I went, oh no, that's spring practice. Yeah. But Coach Majors, I was like, Coach Majors, he loves this stuff. So
yeah, he's a historian.
I make an appointment. I go see him. Okay. Got an appointment. Jenny Ann, the secretary. Oh, Charles, go. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. He'll see you at this time. So I go rolling in at the appointed time. And he's sitting there doing his thing and what have you. And you remember he had those glasses.
Half glasses.
And they sit down at the end of his nose when he was doing this stuff. And so, what can I do for you, young man? And that's I spelled it out to him. I said, Coach, and I really, Dr. Gann, I laid it on too. I said, Coach, you know how much you love academics. And, when we talk history and this, that. I said, I've got an incredible opportunity to go study the Bard, Stratford-on-Avon. He goes, oh, that's fantastic. And I gave the backstory. And I said, without you, Coach, none of this happens because of your encouragement of academics. I'm telling you, man, I'm pouring it on like you wouldn't believe, right? Goes, well, when is this great opportunity, young man? And I said, well, Coach, here's the rub. I said, it is in this time frame, and there would mean that blah, 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 but I could be here. I'm going then, and I'd come back here. So I would miss like 3 practices, 4 practices, or what have you, spring practice. But I just kind of figured, opportunity like this doesn't come along every day. And this is when he went full John T. Majors, right? Now the glasses are down. I've got his full attention. And he leans back in his chair. And he goes, young man, you're correct. It's a wonderful opportunity. I'd like to go on that trip myself. But those dates, young man, let me ask you one question. What brought you to the University of Tennessee that gave you the opportunity to consider those dates? I said, well, Coach, fortunately, I was recruited to play football, what have you. And he said, precisely. I will see you at spring. And that was the end of the meeting. So Coach was all about academics, but we better find a way to beat Alabama, okay? All right? You better be ready to beat Bama and the whole deal. And remember, it wasn't the whole spring practice. It was missing a few practices. My man was like, what brought you here?
What brought you here?
Why are you here? How do you get 3 squares in a cot? Yeah, okay, I'll see you at practice.
John Terrell Majors. You know something, Charles? Bruce Wilkerson reminded me of this. I'm sure Brent's going to talk about it. I talked to Bruce a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He's having total knee, and
he put a little wear and tear on it as an NFL player now.
Yeah, he did. He's a wonderful soul. I love Bruce. And
great.
Anyway, he reminded me that when you came as a freshman, there were 15 or 12 quarterbacks. Is that true?
Well, the number grows every year, Dr. Tegano.
Oh, does it?
It's kind of like the fish that Brent caught, 10 years ago. That fish was here, and now it's But we did have, and I'm going to try not to exaggerate, I think there were 8 or 9 by the time it was said and done. All right. Yeah. And very quickly, Tommy Sims, my class, my recruiting class, Tommy Sims, Terry Brown, Tyrone Robinson, Joey Clinkscales, who was the young man out of junior college? Sam Aiello, Tony Robinson. So there's 7 right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you throw in a few of the holdovers from the year before. So the first time we had a quarterbacks meeting when the veterans came back, they didn't have enough chairs in the room. They had to go get more chairs. but I can tell you this. Before the week was over, they didn't need all those chairs. Terry, Tommy, myself, we go to defensive back. Clink becomes a wide receiver. My roommate Tyrone Robinson becomes an outside linebacker.
Yeah.
Yeah, first time he walked in the room, we were roommates. He's from Bridgeport, Alabama, from New Paltz, New York. He heard me talk with my New York accent. I heard him talk with his Bridgeport, Alabama accent, which is really Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we both had the same thought. This is not going to work. Wait, no way. we ended up being roommates all 5 years, counting our redshirt year. We never split apart. One of the most wonderful people I've ever met. Terrific.
He's phenomenal.
He walked in that room and told me he was a quarterback at his size. I immediately dialed home and said, I think I made a mistake. I will not last here. We have quarterbacks who are the size of linemen. This will not work. He went to outside linebacker. But it is true. There were a million quarterbacks. And I got moved. Oh, God, it was classic. Tony Rob, we were throwing. It was all remember when it was only freshmen? Remember when the freshmen came in, you guys?
Yeah.
The first 3 days is the freshmen before the varsity gets there.
Yeah.
So we're going through our paces, and I made the throw of my life. I mean, every effort, everything came together. I kid you not. This was the throw. It was a comeback, 18-15. I threw it from one hash to the other, and I stuck it. Bam! I was like, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. The very next person throws the ball, and I can still hear it. When a quarterback's a great thrower, you can hear it, and you can do it.
Yeah.
Bam! It's Tony Robbins. I went, uh-oh. Houston, we got a problem. So here's the beauty of it. That was a morning session. Before I take my shower, Coach George Katavalis, who was our defensive backs coach at the time, and I love this man to this day. He comes up, he taps me on the shoulder, he goes, hey, after you change and have lunch before you take your nap because this is a two-a-day. So for all of you kids out there who don't know what a two-a-day is, we practice twice a day back then, okay? And full pads both times. So this is a whole, what? You did what? When was that? 18 what? It was 1982. So he goes, before you go take your afternoon nap, come by my office and see me. So I do all that, go get my ankles taped, get my lunch, blah, blah, blah. Go up and see him. Yes, Coach Katavalis. He goes, look, I think you can be a good defensive back for us and maybe even play like sooner rather than later as opposed to being a quarterback. I said, well, Coach, it's only like the second day. I'd really like to give this more of an opportunity. He goes, yeah, no problem. He said, you think it over. You work at it. I get it. Come back and see me when you're ready, okay? Now, remember, this is before the afternoon practice. I go to my room, pass out, come down for the afternoon practice, go to my locker. And did you ever see Beverly Hills Cop?
Yeah.
Remember Paul Reiser's character? He was, the boiled Eddie Murphy. And he was trying to eavesdrop when the lieutenant was chewing out Eddie Murphy one time. And he goes, Jeffrey, this doesn't concern you. And he goes, this is not my locker. And he starts walking away.
Yeah.
I went to my locker and I went, this is not my locker. The influence Coach Majors has had on my life cannot be overstated. It's that simple, okay? Remember the Green Bay Packers dynasty in the 60s with Vince Lombardi?
Yeah, Packer sweep, all that,
Whole thing. And Jerry Kramer wrote those great books, Instant Replay, and then he wrote a book called Distant Replay for like 20 years after, right?
Mm-hmm.
And talked about that team and how they came together and what Vince Lombardi meant to them and the whole thing. And there was one particular thing where he talked with an ex-teammate, and I can't remember exactly who it was. And the teammate said to him, might have even been in Distant Replay. The teammate said to him, Jerry, I lost my father a number of years ago, and I love that man dearly. But there's days that go by that my dad doesn't reach my thoughts. Like I'm not thinking about him. There's not a single day that goes by that I don't think of Coach Lombardi. Now, if that doesn't speak volumes, I don't know what does, okay?
Yeah.
I will tell you, I have thought about that since we lost Coach. And boy, is that true. Now, I still have my father, and I'm quite sure that if I'm fortunate enough to be around, when I say fortunate, meaning if I continue to live past my father's time on this earth, I will think about my dad every day. It's not one of those situations. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. But that doesn't think about Coach Majors every day, because I do. I'm already there, and it's going to happen. There's always something that pops up. There's something in my life. There's some memory, and it's not always a story. It's not always an incident. It's not always a thing.
It's just a visual.
Yes, it's a visual. It's a way of life. It's how you live. There's things where I do things, and then I realize, I know where that came from, because it's just in you. Okay, it just happens. Do we all get together when we're all together as Vols and we swap stories? And as we always say, swap a few lies and embellish what Coach did. And of course we do. But as my father has taught me, that is the love right? That is the respect. That is the honor. And my dad told me when Coach passed, he said, you already knew it, but you're going to know it more going forward. The true honor that you had in playing for that man. He said, you already know, but you're really going to find out now.
Yeah.
That influence in your life is going to be evident in ways you can't even talk about now. And he's exactly right. It all comes together. Look, the man's memory, as we all know, like when Coach would tell a story, sometimes that plane would take off and maybe what they signaled into air traffic may not have been exactly where the plane went. But by the time he got done, he would land that plane.
Yeah.
He'd go, oh,
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's crazy the stuff that he would remember and what have you. Or
amazing.
Or as a Vol and as one of his kids, if you called him, I'll give you a quick one. We were supposed to get together one time in Knoxville. I was in there visiting. Hit him in advance, the whole thing, because you better hit Coach Majors in advance, otherwise you're going to hear about it later, right? So I hit him in advance, said, Coach, I'm going to be here on these days, blah, 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 blah. I called him when I got to Knoxville to confirm. He takes the call, and I'm hearing all this noise in the background. And Coach Majors says, hello, young man. Yes, sir. And I'm hearing, nah. And finally I said, Coach, where are you? He goes, Charles, I'm in the dentist chair. Remember David Rudder, one of our fine quarterbacks when we first got to Knoxville? David is my dentist, and he's getting ready to do work here. So what time are we getting together? And I hear David he goes, Charles, you remember David? And I said, hey, David. He goes, hey, Charles. Remember that weary voice people would have when they're trying to get Coach corralled?
Yeah.
And you hear David go, hey, Charles, I'm trying to get Coach's examination done. I said, David, I didn't know. I'm really sorry. He goes, you couldn't have known. And then you hear him, Coach, we've got to get this done. I have other patients today. And Coach is like, you hold on just a minute, young man. I'm talking to you. And he proceeds to have a conversation with me. I'm quite sure David went and took care of another patient and then came back. And we set our time and he's in the dentist chair. The man is trying to get work done, but David was one of his. I was one of his, and darn it, David, you should understand this is a Vol calling. I'm taking this call. I don't care if you're doing root canal right now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
I can see him doing that.
You know you can see him doing that because you've seen him do that. Okay. I mean, I came and visited one time, and I was over the Vols films with Barry Rice and Link Hudson and crew. And my son Parker came in to do an 8-week internship with Link and Barry. Yeah. I had just had vocal cord surgery, and I was still on total vocal rest. I couldn't speak for X number of days, but Parker became my thing. Coach was there, all right? And that was when they were gathering all of his stuff, and he had his tearaway jersey that he was so proud of.
Yeah.
And with everything came a story. And once I was writing notes to people, and once Barry or Link came over and really impressed upon Coach, he can't talk. He posted up my son. Parker, I told my son all these stories about Coach. Right? And this is his first true interaction
with John Majors.
Up Parker the next 45 minutes. And we went back to Lynchburg and came back. And they landed the plane, and it was classic. Barry told me that when he was gathering this stuff, Coach had gone to get stuff, and Barry was in New York City. Barry, I love you. I'm going to tell this story. He's in New York City with his family, and they're at a Broadway play. And Barry has his phone on silent, and the phone keeps ringing, and his Coach Majors calling. Well, you can't pull out your phone at a Broadway play and take the call. So Barry lets it go. He said, I kid you. I'll bet you Barry would tell you he called 5 times. Okay. So he gets done. He gets out of the play. Now, I don't care when you played for him, when you worked for him, whatever. You were always his guy, always his player, always someone who worked for him. You can be 57, and if Coach walks in the room, yes, sir, Coach Majors. How are you, Coach Majors? That's how
Put
it
your
is.
feet on the ground.
Yep. immediately. Oh, I'm wearing a hat. I'm sorry, coach. Okay, all of that, right? Barry tells his family he's got to call coach back. Like, hey, give me a minute here. He calls coach back after the play, and coach chews him out. Barry says, "Coach, I'm in a Broadway play," and you figure Coach Major would appreciate that and understand it because he is, right?
He loved art.
Loved it. Loved that stuff, right? Coach Majors hits him with the classic, once you're the head coach, you're always the head coach. And once you're work for the head coach, you always work for the head coach.
Work for the head coach.
Know what he says? Barry Rice, when I call you, you are supposed to answer the phone. And that's it. No excuses. No,
he's the head coach?
I don't care where you are. He's still the head coach. And I promise you, if we were lucky enough for him to walk into this shot right now, my whole posture would change. My demeanor would change. And you doesn't matter what age you are. And I'm like that with all my coaches. I'm very close with Coach Doug Matthews. Okay? I call him coach. I can't call him anything else. And I refuse to call him anything else because I want these people to always understand my respect for them, my love for them, and I don't say that lightly, is immense. And they have had that influence on me. And whatever little bit of success I may have in this world, they are big contributors towards it. And none bigger than John Terrell Major. Okay?
Can I add two things, Brent, real quick?
Sure.
One thing is I was out 4 or 5 years ago. Bruce Wilkerson, Phil Stewart, Terrence Cleveland, Jeff Francis. There was about 6 or 7. Kelly Ziegler might have been there. It was a Friday before a game. I was lucky enough to be there. I forget where we were. And they started telling Major stories. Okay. There were 2 guys there who didn't play. Kelly might have brought him. Jeff might have brought him. I don't know who brought him. But there were 2 guys there. And I'm sitting back, listening to all this, enjoying it. Well, one of those guys said something untoward about Coach Majors, kind of made fun because those guys were making fun, telling jokes. Right. This guy said something.
Oh boy.
You could hear a pin drop, Charles, a pin drop. And Jeff Francis looked at him and said, "You can't say that. Only we can."
Exactly. It's family, right? It's just like any family, okay?
Yeah.
You can throw down with your brothers and sisters, with your crew, but someone else says no. You can't get in that. It's like a wife and a daughter are throwing down and having a fight. Yeah. Any father, if they don't understand, they learn quickly. You can't solve it. But fathers walk in and say, "Hey, what are we doing here?" You know what happens? They go from each other's throats to banding together like the tag team champions of the world. All of a sudden, they're the Road Warriors.
Yeah.
And they come at you. Whoa, what just happened here? That person who said that all of a sudden had all these balls band together and say, "You're not involved."
And Charles,
you can't talk about our head coach. Only we can talk about our head coach.
And Charles, Bruce Wilkerson was sitting next to the guy, and the guy just kind of sat back and became very humble. And you know what Bruce said? Bruce realized what happened. Bruce said, "Yeah, and you're buying the next round too."
No doubt. Hey, you got to make amends somehow.
Yeah, and you got to make amends.
Charles, I mean, we live in a world where loyalty is hard to find. Everybody's looking for the next great. The pastures are always greener. Why was the loyalty? Because it wasn't always perfect with Coach Majors. I mean, it was hard. You didn't always win. But why was the loyalty a two-way street the way it was? Because if you were one of Coach Majors' guys, he was loyal to you to the death. He was going to be loyal to you.
Yes.
Vice versa, you're going to be loyal to him, just like Carmen was talking about in that story. How did he make that happen? How did that work, Charles? Because it's hard to find.
It is hard to find, and I hope I can explain it well. He put you through the fire. Okay, your loyalty is always on test, and I don't mean in trite ways. I don't mean it just right. I don't mean it that way. It means doing things the way you're asked to do them, being on time for things you're supposed to, giving max effort when it's time to do that, taking care of your teammates the way you're supposed to, taking care of yourself, going to class, all those things come here so that you don't create issues that may keep us from the mission, which is trying to win football games on Saturdays. All right. For doing all those things. He's going to tell you what he wants. Are you going to meet that and do it? And if you do, you have a chance. And a couple of things come to mind. He had a great expression that I'm sure you've both heard and repeated ad nauseum. He used to tell us all the time. And I think it's really important in this day and age when the NIL, when the transfer portal is huge, the whole deal. Look, as you said, Brent, it's not perfect. I wanted to transfer as a freshman because I didn't think I'd ever play at Tennessee. I didn't know I would make it. Okay. But if you told him the truth, you were going to be okay. I actually contacted some schools as a freshman because I was redshirting. Hey, would you still be interested in me? Well, they sent notice to Coach Mayer, so there was no tampering, right? And he called for a meeting. And the first thing he said was, Charles, I'll get these letters here from these schools saying you're interested in transferring. Here's the key phrase. You didn't contact them, did you? Now, he knows darn well I contacted him. He's got the letters.
Yeah.
He wants to see what I'm going to say. If I told him, no, coach, I didn't contact him, he knew he knew I was done.
Yeah.
He wanted to know if I was going to do it the right way. And I said, yes, coach, I did contact them. And it changed the whole tenor of the meeting. Now he wants to know how we can make things better, how you're going to get along, so on and so forth. All right. So you have all of that. He put you through those things in those tests. Sun Bowl, I get beat for a touchdown. Change the course of the game. Farrell Edmonds beats me for a touchdown. We end up losing 28-27. I'm totally in the tank. The worst chewing I ever got in my life. The things coach said to me at a certain point, it sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher. It was just white noise, but a bot, wah, 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 expletive, wah, wah, expletive, wah, wah, wah. The worst day of my life. I think I'm never going to play at Tennessee again. It's right before Christmas. I go home Christmas morning. I'm like this at home. Think I'm done. I come back, meeting. Charles, you have to do this, 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 and this. If you do, you have a chance. Boom. I go back, get those things done. I still continue my career. He gave me that opportunity. And last but not least, what he used to tell people, and this is where the transfer portal thing comes in. I'm going to be like, coach, I want a different vector. I'm going to land the plane. Ready? He's always tell us all the time. Times are tough. You may think you should be playing. You're not playing. You're not getting enough time. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. But around this place, those who stay will play. How many fifth-year seniors did we see blossom at Tennessee that maybe didn't have it prior? My teammate Chris White became an All-American.
That's true.
Tony Thompson, All-American. All SEC tailback who never hit the field prior. Okay? We can go on for days with guys who hung in there. And by the time they were fourth-year juniors or maybe seniors, had been sitting behind people, had a chance and went and played. Bo Schembechler always talked about, those who stay will be champions, blah, blah. That was the same phrase, but coach would tell you, those who stay will play. Meaning, if you put the effort in thing, he'll remember it down the road. And if there's a chance, you will get that opportunity. So, Brent, that loyalty thing, it worked both ways. And you're exactly right. It wasn't perfect. There's things he said to me that, when you tell it in a normal conversation, people stare at you like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what they didn't understand was he had the right to say those things to us because on the flip side, when we did things the right way, it was recognized. Okay. He didn't let it go. He didn't just think it was just an absolute. Things would happen that way. So that's a nutshell. I could give you a million different reasons, examples, and things why. But as I said before, before they close that coffin on me, when that box closes, I will have probably two different thoughts that run through my mind. One was not being prepared to try and make it in the NFL the way I should have been. And I work hard now because I missed an opportunity. And I'm not saying I would have made it, but I didn't give myself my best chance of making it. That was on me.
Yeah.
And I never want that to happen again. The other is going to be, I'm going to think of Coach Majors. I almost guarantee it. Guaranteed. It's just too part of who I am and how I got to be here today.
Folks today around Neyland Stadium come to our games, 100,000 people. They see the street. They see the 45 inside the stadium. But right now, in the last 45 minutes, you summed up John Majors as well as anyone has ever. I mean it, Charles. I know I don't have to blow any smoke. The things that you've said about John Majors, the average guy walking in the stadium who looks up and sees that 45 and he sees you on this, he's going to appreciate what that 45 means, not just as a player, but what he meant as a person to all you guys. That was perfect, Charles. And I'm going to tell you one last thing.
Thank you.
I mean that. One last thing.
At some point, if you haven't done it already, when you do the remembrance, Brent, make sure you get Dr. Tegano to tell you about the time that Coach Major's car got towed from Johnny Major's bowl. and Dr. Tegano got called down to witness and be a part of it. And I think the concluding line was, I didn't know a man couldn't park a car on his own street.
You told Johnny Majors. He said, don't they look this stuff up? Here it is, it's John Majors Drive.
He said, how does a man now how can a man not park a car on his own street? Now, Brent, you gotta understand, absolutely illegally parked.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. But it had his name on it.
And then when he came looking for the car, I said, Coach, do you think you might have parked it somewhere and you forgot? And I
what you went there? What?
I was right there.
Why did you say that?
Oh, I wasn't thinking. I said,
what were you thinking?
I said, maybe you parked it somewhere else.
Boy.
Charles, I cannot. He took words and made them adjectives, adverbs, and pronouns in the same sentence. I said, Coach, I didn't tow your car.
You questioned his memory? What were you thinking?
I did.
You have a moment that you just decided you were going to just go all out? Like, if the rest of us had been there when you lobbed that question, we all would have taken 10 steps back, and you were on your own.
Bold.
You were on your own.
Yeah. That's what I said to him. But look,
could you have parked it somewhere else? And Dr. Tegano, he remembers 3rd and 6 against Georgia Tech when he was playing from the right hash, and we ran split counter buck sweep, and he hit such and such in the flat, and you're asking if he remembers where he parked his car?
And Charles, that gap tooth seemed to be getting wider and wider as you walk towards me.
Did he throw that bulldog jaw on you?
Oh yeah.
When that jaw would go.
He said it. He set that jaw.
And Brent, you've been around long enough. You had that, and you know what else you would get from him? Out on the practice field when he wanted to demonstrate, hat would go.
Yeah.
And the whistle behind him, and then he'd want to demonstrate. And I've told before, he got mad at me one time for messing up a play. And finally said, get out. You don't know what you're doing. And he went in, and they ran it a couple of times. And the warp speed now. He's not exactly, the high speed candidate anymore.
No.
And it's going by, and they did it twice. And he turned around, and the head coach always got the last word, right? Right. He couldn't do it to save his life. You know what he says, Brett? He turns to me in front of all the DBs and everyone else. He goes, Charles Davis, you bleeped it up so badly, no one could do it, and walked away.
Well, I can tell you this, Charles Davis, you haven't messed this podcast up at all. You have absolutely nailed it 100%, and I knew you would. I know how much Coach Majors meant to you. I hope Tennessee fans realize how much you mean to them and what the University of Tennessee means to you. You're an ambassador beyond anything imaginable. So on behalf of all the Tennessee fans who have experienced this today, and Carmen, to you for the stories as well, thank you guys both for giving insight into one of the truly great, iconic, legendary figures at the University of Tennessee, one John T. Majors. I appreciate you both. Thanks, Charles.
Attack.
Charles, I love you.
Always attack. Brent, always attack. Dr. Tegano.
I love you, brother.
Dr. Tegano.
Yeah.
Look at me. Look at me.
Yeah.
Let me see the look in your eye.
And then
you don't
think I parked my car here?
I still can't believe you asked that. I can't. Not only did you ask it, you lived to tell the tale. That's the most amazing thing. That may be the biggest upset in college sports history, that you're still around to tell that tale after Coach parked the car.
All right, guys. I got to go see the athletic director. Thank y'all. Appreciate you. See you guys.
Focus. Pay attention to me, young man.